I really just want to say I think that we really do respect and appreciate the hard work that they do, and know that anytime money is involved, I think for taxpayers and such, it becomes a difficult situation. With that said, I have a few concerns to share, and I would urge you to vote against the proposal as is. And I would hope I'd speak for most water district payees or whatever, that a slight increase or an increase is understandable, but not a capital management fee on our taxes. And here are my concerns, a couple of things. One, money management. It seems planning for the future should have been included in our fees over the years, which I'm sure part of it has been, but at the same time, anytime we have a drought, we try and save money, and then our rates go up. And then we have tons of rain, and we got to use, want us to use more water, and then our rates go up. Understanding those rates, but to put it on our taxes, I think is just really over the top. And that's one reason why I would urge you to reconsider that. You're asking us to pay capital management fee tax. However, I haven't heard about a reduction in compensation by the board who is receiving a shocking dollar amount in benefits for a few meetings a year.
It's almost 100 meetings.
Oh, 100 meetings. Somebody had told me 5 meetings. So if that is okay, then I stand corrected, and that would be much better. Okay? The next thing is that I think we don't need any scare tactics saying that we're not going to have good quality water. We want to maintain our quality of water, because I would guess that would be the first priority. And then in the newspaper today, somebody already addressed that, but to restore trails and make, easier for mountain bikers to get from one place to another, that concerns me about where our dollars are being spent. So, understand the rate increase. Personally, I don't have a problem with that. I have a big problem with that going on our taxes. And just one last thing, and I'll get off here, is that we have elderly in this community, we have middle class in this community, and the amount of taxes and asking more and more taxes, and from a water department, along with everything else, is making it unaffordable for those people to stay and live here. And, I think that is why I would urge you to reconsider the way this is structured. Thank you.
Is Laura Ethel here?
She left.
She left. She spoke. Just one thing about the trail article, that is unfunded. That trail improvement project is not funded. We are going to be looking for funding to actually build that trail.
For grant funding or?
For grant funding,
someone.
yeah, so. Okay, so Laura is not here. Priscilla Bull is here, I think.
I think, speaking to you board members, you have heard me enough. Can't hear me? There? Okay, I have to get up close. Well, I have felt that this measure was insufficient for our needs, but it is what we have, and so I hope you will approve it tonight and move ahead quickly, because the needs are urgent, and that we'll start over again and get more next time. I do find I had talked to an acquaintance who is in the insurance industry, and he assures me that and you probably all know this, but that the insurance industry as a whole is really looking at this whole problem with fires, and that they are going to be looking at giving rebates of some sort to people who have fire sprinklers. And he couldn't obviously tell me what they would be, because it would depend on the individual property and what its other aspects are. I think people who are concerned about paying a little bit more for their larger pipes, maybe getting some relief, if not even a benefit, because of the fire protection the sprinklers and the 1-inch pipes do. I don't know about the laundromats, that was something I hadn't thought of, but the fire sprinklers and the larger amount of water is going to be addressed in the insurance industry. I must say, it's ironic to me that the people here who are obviously very concerned about taxes and costs, which I sympathize with. However, Prop 218 is the son of Prop 13 and was cheered by the Jarvis Taxpayers Association, and they're the one that set up this interesting process for imposing fees. So if somebody thinks that the Prop 218 notice and requirements isn't fair, they should contact the Howard Jarvis people. Thank you.
Okay, Barbara Saltzman, and then Robert Malloy, and then Larry Minikis is our last speaker.
I'm representing myself as well as Marin Audubon Society, and first I'd like to say a few words for Marin Audubon. Our board discussed this. We support the measure, except that we would like it to be more funding, and you've heard that from others. We're very concerned about the condition of the watershed, being overtaken by broom and other non-natives. I don't expect you to change things, but in the future, as Priscilla just said, you should look at greater funding for the watershed. Secondly, for myself, I've lived here over 50 years. That seems to be the figure of the day or the night. And I'd like to make a few points about the meeting tonight. One is that I don't think that whatever you did, you would still have complainants today. You would still have people who wanted to have other approaches, and maybe some of the ideas are good, but basically this is where you are, and so you have to vote for this. And with regard to water, I frankly can't think of any more important reason to support this measure, because we need to continue to have the good water that you have and provide to us in the district. People choose to spend their money in lots of different ways. Some go on trips, some buy big houses, some do other things. But water is an essential thing for all of this, and I think people sometimes lose sight of that. And so I just urge you to vote for this tonight, and otherwise you would not be being responsible to the broad customers. Thanks.
Thank you very much. Next is, it's Roberta Malloy. Sorry about that. Roberta? Going once? Okay. Then last speaker is Larry Minikis.
Sounds like I got a family. Good evening, board. You already know where I stand. I hope that you'll pass this tonight without modification. It's badly needed. But what I'd really like to address is some of the people in the room who really don't understand how we even got here. And we've been pointing a lot of fingers tonight, but the fingers we need to point are at ourselves. Because for 29 years, out of those 29 years, 15 of those years we didn't raise rates. And that's because the same people that only come to these rate meetings, I've been coming to meetings, I've been working with this board and working with MMWD for 27 years. And I've seen what goes on. We have dedicated staff that are back there that are still here at this hour. Need to understand these people are committed, and to listen to some of these people just makes me sad. What you need to understand is rates were frozen. Richard Harris, he was wagging his finger, yet he is the one in 1994. That's when rates stopped raising from 94 really through for about 10 years. And I wrote in 94 and I wrote in 98. And I spoke to this board several times and I said, you have to raise rates. You're kicking the can down the road and the day is going to come when we're going to see very expensive upgrades and we're going to have to pay for it. And guess what? Here we are. And the last rate hearings, when we wanted to see a 7% increase, it got knocked down to 4%. That's a 43% reduction in income. You've got to understand, it's not just 7 to 4, it's 43%. That's kind of why we're sitting here today, why we're standing here today, is because of that. You know, and I keep hearing about fairness. Well, when the fire comes, and you can talk to any of the fire chiefs, any fire professional will tell you it's a matter of not if, but when. Where, and your community, wow, Larkspur, okay, they voted against this. When Larkspur goes up in flames, where do you think they're going to point their fingers? They're going to point the fingers at this board for not doing enough. The only way, excuse me, sir, I'm talking. And the only way we're going to get this done is by paying for it ourselves. It's not, we can't go out there. The bonding guy, I know nothing about bonds, but what I do know is that there's a disaster coming, and we need to hold that back so that we will have the ability to get bonds once the disaster arrives. Because we've seen it, we've seen Napa, we've seen Sonoma, we've seen Mendocino, Redding, Paradise, climate change, it's coming. We have to have situational awareness, and that's what I've been talking to this board about, situational awareness. What is actually happening beyond this room? You know, the last thing I want to say, because it is very late, is 2.5% of us have protested this. That means that 97.5% either completely agree because they want our leadership to do something. No, sir. Oh, you have your nerve. You know, you really have some nerve. Excuse me. It's late and I'm tired. Either. See, this is what happens when people try to do shut you down when they don't want to hear what you have to say. But when they speak, we're all quiet. Hypocrites. I would like to finish, because I'm being interrupted. What I'd like to say is there are three classes here. People who are against this. They were motivated. You're sitting here still. Then there's people that want this. There's people that really don't care. And there's people that just didn't bother. But even if we made it easy, I can assure you, without a doubt, this would have passed well beyond 50%. Thank you. Good evening.
Brings public comment. We'll close the hearing and bring it back to the board for discussion and consideration. So. Okay, I guess I'll start. I think the board, my colleagues on the board know, I've had some reservations about the current state of the fee proposal, but the majority of the board made a decision, directed drafting of the current ordinance, and here we are. So it is a binary decision that we're facing tonight, up or down. Some of my concerns, I think, have been addressed. Adding a 2-year review, I think it's a great idea for everybody. It kind of gives everybody a little bit of reassurance that we're going to be watching this closely. I'm concerned about what effect this is going to have on water consumption, because it could affect water consumption. What effect is this going to have on shutoffs? I don't really think we have a lot of shutoffs, but we definitely recognize that water is a human right. I think all of us on the board understand water is a human right. We are a public agency. We are responsible to you. And we take that responsibility seriously. So I think it bears that out that the board is willing to take another look at this in 2 years instead of 4 years. so that we can track the impact and really see how this plays out. The other two issues, segregating accounting of the revenue. That is something the board has agreed to do. That's something the community wants and deserves. That's going to be done. And the third issue for me that remains sort of in play is how we're going to deal with our sister public agencies. So some of our biggest customers are actually other public agencies. It's not just residential customers. We have schools, we have municipalities, we have other utilities. These are big water users. These are big customers of ours. And we need to make sure that these other agencies that also provide vital public services are not unduly impacted or even harmed by this proposal. And so what the board has discussed and considered is to do a really active reach out to all the public agencies to help them audit their water use and reduce water use and reduce the size of some of their services so that they can garner savings to reduce the impact of the fee. So those are three changes, three improvements that the board is agreeable to doing to improve the proposal and to reduce the impacts and to make sure that we just don't go off half-cocked. We're going to be continuing to monitor the situation as we go forward. And I think that's a reflection really of the work that's been done by the community coming in and expressing their reservations and their concerns about the situation. So it has been an imperfect process. I can tell you after 15 years, both municipal and utility board experience, there aren't many processes that aren't. Every time we did a proposal, fee or a tax proposal in the town of Fairfax, it's the same thing. As the deadline draws near, more and more people are coming to our meetings and expressing their concerns. So it's a hard thing. I think we can improve that by webcasting our meetings, and the board will be considering that in the coming months. So these are all improvements I hope we can provide to the community. I think the more the community knows and understands about the water district, it's going to benefit the community, it's going to benefit the water district. We need to improve our community engagement, and I think there's a recognition of that by this board. So I'm heartened by that. Nothing's 100%, but it's working together to improve the situation, to work together to meet the needs of the community. This is your district. We've been elected to represent you. We also have sort of an institutional loyalty. This is a historic institution. It's the first public water agency in California. I think we all recognize the work, the dedication, and the skill that's needed to run this organization and to keep this institution going. So to some extent, there is a bit of divided loyalty, a bit of conflict, and we do our best to reconcile it when we make these decisions. So,
was there any purpose in our coming here at all tonight? Yeah. Those who are dissonant, is there any reason we were here? Any reason at all?
I think there was.
For what?
Why have you come for a day's rules?
He should. You're out of order. We can talk after the meeting. But I think it is a process, and it's a public process. It's, you know, I don't mean to say you're too late. I think your comments have been heard. And you know, you got to kind of stick with it. You can't just abandon the process. So you've been heard. I'm going to pass the baton to some of my other board members.
First of all, I want to say that I've been through a lot of rate hearings. This rate hearing has absolutely nothing to do with pensions and salaries. That's a fact. You can argue against that, but that's the fact. What it has to do with is our 22,000 acre watershed, Mount Tamalpais, and the infrastructure, continuing infrastructure, not making up for lost time. It's a continuous process, and we're changing how we do it to a certain extent. But it's to maintain that continuous process, maintain the mountain in the face of climate change and increased wildfires, increased knowledge of wildfires, all of which is absolutely critical. And if I'm going to live with myself, I got to vote for it now. Now, why did you all folks attend the meeting? Well, I heard a lot of very compelling arguments as to why this is unfair and why it's not a good thing. Some of them, quite frankly, I'll dismiss as nonsense. Others of them I took quite serious and were compelling. And I will consider them, and I will, and I'm sure our staff, this is the first time we're doing this restructured method of collecting the tax. It's obviously less than perfect. If I learned nothing out of this meeting, I learned it's less than perfect. It will change over time as we get a little bit better at it, as we learn things, as our staff works on some of the glitches that you've identified right here tonight. And I'll support Larry's shortened check-in and other changes, the three items that you suggested that we need to consider. I think that's on board. I'm 1,000% with that. And other changes that I'm sure our staff will make in the process too. So we'll get, I'm sure still not a perfect process, but at least it will be better. So bottom line is, yeah, we heard you. You didn't waste your time coming here. What'll come out of it, we'll have to see. We're learning as we go, but with all of that said, I don't want to kick the can down the road. I intend to vote for the product we have now and then work on making it better.
You know, it was really good that everybody came. I listened to what everybody was saying. I took a bunch of notes. I took down some names because I want to see what they're thinking in terms of how we might move forward as we work on these projects, because it's going to be continuing. You know, we've heard continual improvement, but I'm sincerely interested in that. There was a gentleman in the audience who asked me, who am I and why am I doing this? And who are we and why are we doing this? And just in a quick nutshell, I was a national park ranger for over 20 years. I worked as an educator in the Marin area, teaching science, Spanish, and art for 10 years. And for the last 11 years, I've been executive director of the Sierra Nevada Research Institute for the University of California. And I work with the top watershed, water, soil, and air scientists in the West. The people that I work with are the people that you see quoted everywhere. And the people that I work with there, I've brought to the district to our meetings to advise us on how we should look ahead to the mountain. And my greatest concern is the health. In fact, I look at this picture that you guys are all looking at the Marin Municipal Water District. I think in the future we should have a split. And on one side you should see the historic picture of that view, and on the other see what we see today. Because as many places throughout the US and throughout the West, this place is overgrown, and it is literally an explosion waiting to happen. And my concerns about the investments that we have to make have everything to do with a single devastating fire up there could actually damage the water quality to a point that this community would be in crisis, and our people would be you'd have life and property threatened, but literally we could lose the water quality that we have in a one-day event. I really recommend that you take a look at the Marin History Project. They have a video that shows all of the historic fires that have occurred in Marin, and don't turn off the soundtrack because it's a bonanza in the back. But what it does is it shows literally a map of Marin burning up. And there's one fire, and I forget the year when it happened, but it started over in Dogtown, burned up over the ridge, burned down through everything that is Kent Lake all the way to Fairfax.
1945.
Okay. Okay, I won't forget that. But I really recommend that everybody take a look at that and think about where we are today and what it's going to, and I don't know what we're going to have to do. In fact, we just are finishing a study now to see how we approach this. We've got the BIFID out. And all of those things add up to a real serious concern that we're going to have to address. And we may have to bring, we're going to have to bring everything to bear on this. I also said that I'm the chairman of the California Water Commission and have been for 3 years. I've been all over California, and you know what? These conversations are the same up and down the state, but what I'm also seeing up and down the state is places like Los Angeles. The citizens a few years ago agreed to tax themselves $300 million a year in perpetuity to establish a stormwater capture and groundwater recharge program because they think they can actually collect a third of their water going forward once this is all set up. And there are communities everywhere that are looking at major investments so that they can secure literally their local water supplies. And I'm talking about communities that actually have access to other water supplies in California. We don't. This is it. So anyway, I think that, I will also say that I think that we did a really clunky job in getting this out there. And that absolutely needs to improve, and it's been a stinging experience for me. And so I empathize with everybody in the room about that. And Mimi kept saying to me, well, why didn't you bring us in earlier? We could have understood what was going on and could have participated. And I think that we absolutely, my notes all through it say how we have to do things better. Because I think, and one of the things that I also struggle with, and I'll finish with this, is you'll hear people say our water district, and actually it should say, we always should say yours includes ours. You know, because really, I do think of it that way, and I'm not a permanent fixture on this board, and I know that for sure. But anyway, I'm thinking about the future. I've been here living in this country since 1983, and we've got a lot of work to do.
Who on the board takes the lead on finance?
No, I just, we can talk after the meeting.
Who does?
Director Leslie?
Finance.
We have a finance staff, and we have financial consultants, and we have legal consultants. Director Russell?
Our ears are open. We're listening. As I said to Karen, we have 100 meetings a year. Don't wait for 2 years to attend these meetings only. If you want to know what we're doing and you want to see what we're doing, you have 100 opportunities. I grew up in the water business. My father worked for LA Water and Power for 30 years. I've run a consulting firm for 40 years. I advise water clients all over the world, including the European Union. And, it costs money to run these districts. When I first ran for election in 2004, the thing that I pointed out to the IJ and to my opponent is that the water board is a fundamentally different animal than something like a school board. We protect your health and safety. It's as simple as that. We make a mistake, there's consequences of a mistake. We're always looking ahead and back, but mostly ahead, to try and solve problems. As an engineer, I have a PhD from Berkeley in water engineering, and my son has a PhD, he works for me from Stanford in water engineering, and I've trained him to look around the corner and over the hill without having to go there. That's the key to engineering, is being able to see things without having to experience them. That's what I'm trying to bring to this board. And what we're trying to do is to create a structure that exists. It's always easy to spend money. That's the simple thing to do. It's always easy to borrow money. That's a simple thing to do. The hard part is to tighten the belt, live within the budget, and move forward. That's what we're doing now. We're putting this system on a good financial footing so that in the future, there is an MMWD. And you keep borrowing money and borrowing money, look at it from a pragmatic standpoint. There's a cost of doing business, an annual cost to run the district. Whether you borrow the money or you put the money out of your pocket, sooner or later, the average is going to be that number. So you need to pay your share, I need to pay my share, the future needs to pay their share. How they pay it, Sure, you can manipulate the bonds around and take advantage of that, and we've tried to do that. We've refinanced, we've saved millions of dollars of interest. But now it's time to pay the man and to move this thing forward, and that's what we're trying to do. But thank you for being here.
Director Kohler on the line still?
Yep, I'm here.
Do you want to say anything?
I think all I want to say is I want to thank everybody who has participated, the members of the public who have stuck with us through this, and we really haven't done a good enough job of thanking the staff, which has spent, several years and, countless hours trying to address everybody's concerns. I don't want to repeat what everybody else has said, but I think it is, I think it bears underscoring that these are complicated issues and that we're not going to, I guess a lot of people have said this, we're not going to make everybody happy, but I think there's been an unusual, extraordinary effort to accommodate all of the issues that have been raised, and I'm just very proud of the work that the district has done here. So I just want to thank everybody for hanging in there. And I know it's only 11 for you, but it's 12:15 for me. So I don't want to really do anything for that.
So,
and I will also say, I'm sorry, one more thing. I do need Ben or somebody who has a better microphone to walk through the changes that are being proposed, because the sound just hasn't been good. So I understood that there were 3 changes that are being proposed, and I think I'm fine with them, but I think it's important that we really get clear on what they are so that we don't get down the road and have everybody, have different views about what was proposed. So that would be, I would really appreciate that.
okay, that's a good idea. Go ahead.
Yeah, I think we're looking at these, Cynthia, as not changes per se to the ordinance, but direction staff would be receiving from the board. Larry Russell had an initial one on enhancements to the Super Saver program that staff will be coming back to a subsequent board meeting to provide feedback and considerations along those lines of his proposal. Then we have 3 that Director Bragman suggested. One is changing from the 4-year check-in process to a 2-year check-in process. And specifically what we mean by that is in 2 years, aligned with the development of our biannual, our 2-year budget, that staff would review the capital maintenance fee for adequacy to fund the CIP in light of our ongoing efforts of our asset management program and what's it indicating. Is the need going down? Is it going up? Where are we in terms of our wildfire task force and gaps that may have identified and the like? But also talking about some of the process issues that have been brought up tonight and previously. How is it going? Are there things we can do to refine the approach as we better understand the capital maintenance fee, and discuss that with the board and with the public? And then the second item that Director Bregman had was to ensure that staff would develop a separate, discrete tracking program, tracking accounting system and reporting approach for the new capital maintenance fee for a number of reasons, but to ensure that those funds are used for the purposes as described, namely, and that we're reporting out appropriately on that. And then the third item that he requested is that the board consider that staff would work with public agencies in the district, school districts, cities, to do water audits that we do as a matter of course for the water conservation program, but we would focus that on public agencies to get those out and to provide assistance for right sizing their meter sizes to all designed, of course, to both conserve water and lessen the impact of the CMF.
Could I just, on the check-in 2 years, I'd like to see us re-engage with our cost of service analysis to take another look at different approaches as we did for this fee.
Yes, we can do that. For clarity, the plan going forward would be that would be a process we would engage, report out to the board and the public, and take feedback and make some course corrections. We are not at this point envisioning that would impact the 4-year Prop 218 process that we're concluding potentially tonight.
Okay, that's a start. Okay. Is everybody clear?
Director Barton, before we go forward, I just would like a minute to talk about what constitutes. Before we go forward, I'd just like to talk about what constitutes the record of the proceeding tonight. May I? Okay. First of all, on the dais and available to the public is a letter to me from Mike Colantuno and Amy Sparrow. This legal memorandum is a response to a letter we received last Thursday around noon from the McNeil Law Firm. This will be entered into the record. I think the record should also reflect that we received an additional 99 protests tonight. We have not had a chance to validate them, but even if they were all considered valid, they wouldn't constitute a majority protest. And back to the record of the proceeding includes all the meeting packets and related presentations of the Board of Directors, Finance, District Operations, and Communications Committees from July 2017 through May 2019. All of the community presentations that were made to special interest groups, the community rate workshop presentations, the ordinances and the resolutions pertaining to the water rates, fees, services, and charges, the Prop 218 notice and the mailing information, and then there are all the financial reports, which are the audits, the Carollo 2017 final COSO, the Raftellus Water Financial Plan 2019, the strategic plan, the proposed 10-year CIP, which is attached to the staff report, the Citizens Advisory Committee meetings, the presentations, and the meeting tapes, and also all the testimony here tonight. Thank you.
Just as far as the accounting of the funds, my preference would be that should be added to the ordinance. That's an easy thing to add.
So what's
Can we
the
do
pleasure
that?
of the, it's possible to do, yes, what's
Okay.
the pleasure of the board?
I think it's an easy thing to do.
Actually, I think it's a good idea.
What complications does that present?
It's not complicated at all. We'll add it as a finding. We can add it as number 43, and it could read something like this. Revenue from the CMF will be annually accounted for separately and reported out to the Board of Directors.
Okay.
And also, this is something that will show up on our annual audit. And so it's something that people can just go put their finger right on it.
So the first order of business is the resolution. We need a resolution. We need a motion, a second, and a roll call vote on resolution 8538, which is the environmental review.
We need those separate items.
We need that.
The ordinance?
Yes, separate, please.
And then I'll move approval of resolution 8538 regarding the environmental review of ordinance and
I'll second.
Okay, roll call vote.
Director Gibson,
Aye.
Director Quintero,
Aye.
Director Russell,
Aye.
Director Kohler,
Aye.
and President Bragman.
Aye.
I'll make a motion to approve ordinance number 442.
With the amendment of
As
the
amended.
finding number 43.
Second?
Roll call vote, please.
Director Gibson,
Aye.
Director Quintero,
Aye.
Director Russell,
Aye.
Director Kohler,
Aye.
President Bragman.
Aye. Okay, folks, that's all she wrote.